Hello and welcome back. Our allotment is coming along really well, and inevitably we will come to the point where we need to consider about dealing with weeds, pests and diseases. The invasion will come, folks, and we just need to be aware and ready to manage, and that's the secret of this particular episode. We're not talking about eradication. Everything has a happy home in a sustainable allotment. So it's just management of that population of weeds, pests and diseases. Now there's certain things that you need to consider before you go straight to sprays and things like that. So particularly for pests, can you put barriers in place to begin with? So here I've got my net now across my brassica bed, and that's to stop the pesky pigeons from getting down from the trees and eating my brassicas. So there's one good example. Can you put barriers into place? And there are many. Can you hand pick pests? Weeds, for example, can you hand weed? And if you've tried all those things and you feel as though that you are getting overwhelmed by things, then you can turn to liquid alternatives. Now, chemical-based alternatives, remember, give you a short-term answer to a longer term problem, and actually do a disservice for yourselves, because actually fight against the natural fauna that's in the soil and around the plants that helps to combat pests and diseases in particular. But I'm going to give you some sustainable alternatives. We're on lockdown, we can't go down the garden centre, so you've got everything in your home that you can actually make to combat weeds, pests and diseases. So let's have a look at a few. So to begin with, health and safety. Anything that you make and you mix, you must label the bottle, and you must make sure that this is well out of reach of children. So make sure it's up on a high shelf or well locked away, so you don't want children getting involved with that. And we're going to look at giving you a sustainable herbicide that you can use, a sustainable fungicide, and then 3 or 4 pesticides that you can actually look at, use and utilise. So to begin with, let's look at weeds and giving you a sustainable herbicide that you can actually use. So first of all, what we actually need for a good weed killer is something that will burn. And there we have it. It's white vinegar. That's ultimately the burner. Then we need something that will desiccate and dry. And there it is. It's table salt. And then we need something that will take those 2 ingredients and make them stick. And we've got some shampoo. So there you go. And your instant mix for this is 2 cups by volume of vinegar, 1/4 of a cup of salt, and a good splodge of shampoo. And you will have a herbicide there that will basically kill annual weeds instantly. Perennial weeds it will knock back, but let's be real about things, folks. They probably have a really stubborn root system, and you're going to have to get in there at some point and actually dig those roots out. Now, do not do this on a breezy day. Don't spray on a breezy day, because this is a contact herbicide. So it will actually kill whatever it touches. So even your good things. So not on a breezy day, even on a scorching hot day like today, beautiful day today, do not spray in these conditions. You're just wasting your time. It'll evaporate. Now, if you need to do something that's in amongst plants, then use a directional thing, and here's a toilet roll tube, and pop that over the top of the weed. Put your spray bottle down there, give it a good spray, and it'll just direct the actual spray onto the weed that you want to kill. Okay, so there is your sustainable herbicide: vinegar, salt and shampoo. Now moving on to fungicides. And fungal diseases come in you know, many different forms. Things like powdery mildew, downy mildew, black spot on roses, all those sorts of things, and certainly affect plants that we've got in the vegetable garden. So here is your all-purpose fungicide. What you need is you need 1/4 of a pint of milk. Now these tumblers I tend to use in gardening, and they are 1/2 pint tumblers. It's about £1 for 10. So there's 1/4 of a pint, okay? And then you need some baking powder, baking soda or bicarbonate of soda. They're all the same things, folks, apart from the fact that the baking products have got a rising agent. Now the way this actually works is that on your leaf lamina you've actually got an acid surface. And baking powder is alkaline, so it basically turns those acid surfaces into alkaline surfaces. And fungal diseases love acid surfaces, and they can't get to grips with alkaline surfaces. Now, here's your mix. You take 2 teaspoons of baking soda, baking powder, bicarbonate of soda, good 2 heap teaspoons. Pop them into the milk. Now we use milk because it's gloopy and it holds the mix in suspension really well. Plus it's white, so you can see where you've actually sprayed. Now you will have to mix this fresh every time you use it, because obviously milk does tend to go off. Okay, and there it is. There's your all-purpose fungicide for things like powdery mildew, downy mildew, black spot, and a whole host of other things. Okay, so there's your herbicide, there's your fungicide. Now we're going to move on to pesticides, so dealing with pests. And we're going to start with aphids, green fly, black fly, those sorts of things, fleshy bodied pests, smaller ones. And effectively, half a bar of soap into a litre of water, boil it up so the soap disappears, and then just spray that on. And that will deal with any fleshy bodied pests like aphids, green fly, black fly, those sorts of things. It's a desiccant, so it dries them out. It actually pulls the moisture out of them and actually kills them that way. So there's your soap. So if you're suffering with slugs, there's a number of solutions, and snails, there's a number of solutions that we can actually look at there. So first of all, in our house we can't go to Costa anymore, and we can't go down to Starbucks, but what we do have is this fancy coffee machine. Now, if we just break into this little device here, well, there you go. And I'm just going to do this quite quickly, folks. But coffee grinds are an instant deterrent for slugs and snails. And you'll be surprised as to how much one of these little cartons actually contains. If you let that dry through and then just apply it to the soil around the plants that you're trying to protect, then instantly you have a slug or a snail repellent. It's also good for the soil as well, so it helps to add nutrients to the soil. So there's one slug or snail deterrent. The next one is garlic, and garlic is wonderful. So it's allicin, which is the oil within garlic that we actually want. So you can actually do a quick spray. Just literally chop your garlic up, leave it in about a pint of water, and then use that water after a couple of hours and spray onto things, okay? And that will help you manage the population. But what's better to do with garlic is to actually pop this into your food blender, your liquidizer, whatever you want to call it, and actually blend it down, then leave it in an open container for 24 hours, and then spread it on the ground around the plants that you want to protect. And effectively that is a slug and snail deterrent. If you use it as a liquid spray as well, add a little bit of pepper in there, perhaps some curry powder, chili powder, things like that. You've got an instant mix there for you to actually use on caterpillars and things like that. Moving on quite quickly, we then move on to onions, and onion juice again is an effective repellent for caterpillars. Again, slugs and snails will react to this. The other thing that you might want to try is a tea bag with some deep heat sprayed onto it will actually repel cats. And there's a whole host of things that we could actually look at for your pesticide formulas. But remember, at all costs, if you mix a liquid, you must A, label the bottle, and B, make sure it's out of children's way so they can't get into any harm at all. So there you go, folks. There is one herbicide mix that you can try. There's your fungicide mix you can try, just a quarter pint of milk, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and we've covered a little bit of a range of things for you to help the pests in the garden. Remember, this is your last line of attack. We're talking about management, not eradication here. So if you do get some sort of infestation, then try one of these out and see how you get on with it. Let me have your comments. If you're new to the channel, welcome on board. Please do subscribe, and I'll be in touch with the next episode fairly soon. Keep watching, guys, keep gardening, and keep gardening most of all sustainably while we're in lockdown. But why don't you continue to garden sustainably when once lockdown has disappeared totally? See you next video, guys.